Imagine being lost somewhere in the unknown universe. You're out of fuel for your ship, and your only company is the stars shining light years away. There is only the void of space, the hum of nothing yelling in your ears. Except the alarm telling you that you're running out of time while your last comet falls into the abyss of your improvised game of Space Arkanoid. That's more or less what PLOING is all about. A twist on a classic arcade game, expanded and remixed into something more. It was developed by Surricate Software, a tiny studio composed of 2 people who once made colorful little games intended for younger ages or men-children like me. Titles such as Sammy Surricate in Lion Land, a colorful puzzle game where you play as the company's mascot and collect gems to open doors. I actually played the demo quite a bit back when I was a kid, and even now I like its simple charm, even if it's a bit janky. Also, apparently it's called Unserious Sam in Russia, and the font on the startup logo looks pretty familiar. Surricate Software is one of those studios that made games which, open quotes, only you remember playing during childhood, even if you don't immediately recognize the names. Like Exisoft and Exisnake. Don't forget to smash that comment section if you're still traumatized by that death scream. Technically speaking, PLOING is 2 games, PLOING and PLOING 2. But also technically speaking, PLOING 1 was never finished. Version 0.5 was made available as freeware, and the concept got rebooted into PLOING 2, which did get a full commercial release, featuring 7 galaxies with 7 levels each. Sadly, PLOING 1 refuses to run on my current PC no matter what, but at least we can check out the star of the show thanks to DigiFudu 2, God bless it. PLOING's story is appropriately minimal. You play as Peter Pilot, some dingus who forgot to pack enough fuel for his rocket, so now you need to get more by smashing comets into shiny blocks and weird devices until you score enough points to leave. The tank is empty, points are fuel, space is full. It sounds simple enough. Bump into a comet to get it started and guide it around with your paddle as you obtain points, while preventing it from falling off the play area or touching a red zone. Sometimes there's also power-ups, like lasers and lightning that damage objects, or force fields that alter gravity. Once you've accumulated enough score, the door to the rocket opens and you can finish the level. However, you only have a limited number of lives to replace each comet you lose. And more importantly, there's a time limit for each level before the rocket takes off, with or without fuel. Nothing complicated, right? There's even a certain zen to it, thanks to the eerily empty atmosphere. The game doesn't have any real music, just ambient sounds droning in the background to go along with the plinks and plonks of the gameplay. In a way, it's dull and repetitive, but it also ends up making the game more thoughtful, meditative, relaxing even. There's only the empty void of space, the sound of each impact, and the dopamine rush of each point you score. You really are all alone here. But the complications come when the level design expands beyond the basics and introduces elements such as multiple comets, doors that open or close when you hit certain score thresholds, enemies that interfere with everything, as well as all kinds of traps and apparatuses that you need to interact with. Don't be fooled, this isn't your grandfather's Arkanoid. It's so much more evil than that. PLOING is just as much of a puzzle-solving experience as it is a spin on classic arcade gameplay. You learn through experimentation that certain levels demand you do things in a specific order, lest you end up unable to reach the necessary points to clear it. When you accidentally destroy a fuel tank for the first time, you will realize that the level design is a bit cheeky sometimes. You see, destroying all fuel tanks renders you unable to score more points, but each one also grants you 10,000 points. If that's all you need to complete the stage, then you can just do that. In fact, a handful of stages are explicitly designed around this, for better or for worse. And that's where the rabbit hole begins. The level design soon evolves, requiring you to juggle things like teleporters that take comets to somewhere you can't reach, or controlling multiple play areas to avoid losing too many lives, or you effectively becoming the main participant of a level rather than the comets. And all the while, the alarm siren blares your ears and raises your heart rate. Really, the madness that this game puts you through in its final levels is almost genius. This is the game where you have to bump a comet into the middle area so you can get the laser, letting you go back to the left area and break the metal blocks that lets you get the time extensions necessary to complete the level, while being careful not to exceed 10,000 points because that locks them away. Then you can destroy all the blocks and fuel tanks in there, letting you open the 50,000 point door in the middle area where you have 3 small comets, a red zone behind you and a single device that gives you 10,000 points when it's hit. But you have to be quick because the last fuel tank in the right area will eventually be destroyed by the comet there. It's absolute nuts. Of course, I'm romanticizing all of this for the sake of painting a more interesting narrative. In practice, there are plenty of moments where it feels like you're fiddling with the physics more than anything else, since they never feel as precise as some levels seem to demand. You can play the game with the mouse, and that lets you do very exploity things like pushing comets into wherever you want them to go. Some levels have such tight time limits that it almost seems intentional. Plus, there's stages where you're supposed to activate or destroy objects in a specific order, and you won't figure it out until you've exhausted all your options and have to restart the level. Although, since the levels are all pretty short, the frustration factor is manageable, with every galaxy being clearable in around 30 to 40 minutes. That said, the difficulty is also all over the place. You would expect each galaxy to be progressively harder, but in practice there are difficulty spikes and drops in all of them. Even in the first and last galaxies, you'll be surprised at how easy or hard one level is compared to the previous one. The only thing that grows with time is how complex the layouts are, with more elaborate usage of gravity and other mechanics. But that doesn't necessarily make them the hardest. It's actually kind of interesting from a game design standpoint, how you can tell that the later levels generally feel like they've been designed with a specific intent, whereas the middle point has levels that can only be described as chaotic. So yeah, that's PLOING. It's pretty cool, you should play PLOING. PLOING 2 at least, that can still run on Windows 10 with minor fiddling from DG Voodoo 2. There's some insignificant visual glitches, but otherwise it plays fine. But what about Surricate Software? Did the company disappear or die in the meantime? Well, no actually. Although their website is gone and replaced with whatever this is, I do remember it was still online a few years ago, just abandoned. But the company isn't, having just last year released another entry in its long-running Duel Match series, a mix of solitaire and adventure game mechanics. As for its two founders, they seem to remain in the company as far as 2020, although beyond that I'm not sure. But given that they're credited as producers for so many entries in the series, there's a solid chance that they're still working there as usual. Good on them. Jewel Match might be literally your mom's Facebook game, and it's pretty clear that the aesthetics and target audience of their oldest works aren't the ones they're surfing nowadays. But I'm glad to see that the name Surrogate Software hasn't just vanished without a trace, even if the world might never see a Ploing 3.